Hi everybody, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. So you guys have had a lot of questions about Copper the puppy, and today we're going to try and answer as many of those as we can. Echo's having a good old roll over there. So basically what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be answering some questions about where Copper came from and why I decided to get her, why I picked her, and then we'll move on to talking about what Copper's next few years are going to look like and what videos you might expect to see in relation to training Copper to become a sheepdog and things like that. And then we're also going to have maybe a little discussion about some of the personality traits, at least that I'm seeing coming out in Copper over the last 2 weeks. So here she is here. We're outside with the dogs right now. We'll go into the house in a little while and we'll do a bit of this video sitting in the house. But yeah, Copper's been mixing with the dogs quite well. Little altercation with Storm a couple of times, but it's been no real big trouble. It's just a lot of noise really. Storm telling her off for things. So you can see behind me the greenhouse is still in a bad shape. I haven't fixed it yet. But I'll get around to that. But let's talk about Copper first and why I ended up picking her. So I actually spoke about getting a new sheepdog puppy probably at the beginning of the year. Just with having Cole and him being at that sort of stage where he's sort of just a baby still, it was a bit hard. But as he's grown up and becoming a little more independent, it's now probably the right time. So yeah, I did start looking for a puppy, but not seriously. I actually seen a puppy slightly earlier and inquired about it, and nothing came of that. So it was a red puppy as well, slightly probably better bred than Copper, slightly, and yeah, nothing came of it. But yeah, part of what I was looking at is I didn't want something completely the same, or I didn't want another black and white, even though I love my black and whites. I did want something a bit different this time, something to add to the gene pool, because there's a good chance we'll eventually breed Copper to Echo, who's there. So adding a bit of different colour, adding a bit of tricolour was something I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if it's going to be red or whether maybe a tricolour or something a bit different as well. But yeah, definitely I wanted something a bit different from the black and whites. Kate's a tricolour as well, so there is tricolour in Storm and Echo's breeding. Storm's litter didn't have any tricolour that I can remember, but they did have a few with blue eyes. Basically, I am part of a few groups which are based here in Scotland that run around sheepdogs and sheepdog puppies and training and things like that. And I was sitting scrolling one morning and a photo of 3 puppies popped up. They were for sale. Copper was the middle puppy, and yeah, I noticed her straight away. She was unique because she has very little white. A lot of people think she's a Kelpie. She's not a Kelpie. She is a purebred border collie. She's just not got a lot of white. So you do see a lot of red, brown and white border collies, but they generally have a lot of white, especially in their face, where Copper doesn't, and that was unique to me, and that was probably one of the first things that drew me to that advertisement. There's nothing quite too special about Copper's breeding in general terms. She's got 2 working parents. I did see a short video, I might add it in, of her chasing some pet lambs around. That really doesn't mean anything at that point. She could just be having fun with them. But yeah, she has working parents. Breeding's nothing special, but neither are my dogs. I don't get too wrapped up in breeding or looking for dogs which have champion mothers and fathers. Kate has some fairly good breeding. Haig was the other dog, my old dog that I used to have, who's passed away now. He was unregistered, so he didn't have any particularly good breeding, and that's what produced Storm's litter. So Storm, I guess, had a sort of mix of breeding, and then she was with a male who had slightly better breeding again. So yeah, and that's what produced Echo's litter. So I'm not too bothered about any great breeding or anything like that. I don't look into those things too much. Generally what I'm looking for is just a puppy who's both mum, dad is working, they're good workers, and I'm happy with that. As in terms of breeder, they're not from any specialised breeder, should we say. It's a basic farm horn, much like I would if I was breeding puppies. I don't breed professionally, but the odd time where I'm wanting to further on my line, I will breed. So it's similar situation to the way that I would breed. They were looking to further on their line. There was a litter of 5, they were going to be keeping 2, and then they were selling the 3, and Copper was one of those 3. So then obviously you go see, Copper was actually ready to go by the time I seen the advert. So went out, quite a long drive, but seen the mum and dad. Mum and dad were both in good order, looked good, healthy dogs. Mum a bit more leaning towards the modern type border collie, short coat, pricked ears, yeah, sort of like lighter frame. Dad sort of sitting very similar to Kate, actually, sitting on the sort of old style of border collie, a bit more long haired, floppy ears, a bit more frame about him. Hair very similar to Kate, where Kate is sort of long haired. She's not like Echo-ish, where it's sort of like rough long hair. She's very fine long haired, and the Copper's dad was very similar to that. And I do think Copper is going to be long haired. I think she could even be similar to the type of hair Echo has, where it's really long, really sort of rough, shaggy hair. And the reasons for that, and I'll just show you in a minute. So if we look at Copper first off, and it's hard to get her to sit still, especially when she's out here with the dogs, but she's got that sort of fuzzy look to her. You can definitely tell that she's going to be long haired just from that sort of fuzzy look. But if we get in close to the back of the legs, if she stands still, you see she's actually already got flashings, and she's just a puppy. You have to excuse Echo, he's been rolling, he's a bit dirty, but flashings, it's basically this here. It's these long hairs that come off the back legs, off the sort of bum area, and you can see Copper has flashings right down to the back of her knees here. So yeah, it's a pretty good indicator that she's going to be pretty long haired. So yeah, in terms of picking puppies, I don't get wrapped up in, or I try not to get wrapped up too much in breeding and things like that. Copper's what we'd call unregistered, so she's a purebred border collie, but she's not off a registered line. So Haig, my first dog, wasn't off a registered line, and Storm and Echo technically are non-registered. They're purebred border collies, but they're non-registered lines because they're just my own line. Said that, you could get Storm and Echo registered. It's called registered on merit. Basically, you would show proof that they're border collies, you would show proof that they're working dogs, somebody would come out and you could start your own line that way. It's something I don't bother with too much because I'm not too bothered about fancy breeding and things like that. I'm more bothered about just getting a good working dog. So yeah, it really was just aesthetics that attracted me to Copper in the first place. And then when we went and seen the parents and the litter mates, they were in good condition, they were in good order, they were good healthy pups. Copper was a good strong pup for her age. And yeah, that's really all that mattered to me in the process of picking Copper. Also, I should say at this point, there's big influence from Stacey. Stacey's always wanted me to get a red puppy. She really likes the red border collies. So yeah, there was definitely a part of me showing Stacey the photos, and Stacey was like, oh, that's a good looking puppy. She also found it quite a unique looking red. So yeah, we both really like the aesthetics of Copper. These two are best friends right now, Echo and Copper. Echo and Copper, best chums. Same can't be said about Storm. Storm either acts like Copper's not here or acts like Copper's annoying her. But Kate's, you can see right there, Storm's got her toys, so Copper's not allowed near her, and Copper knows better. Don't you, Copper? What are you doing? She been mean to you again? Copper, that'll do. That'll do. Good girl. Sit. Sit. You sit. Sit. Good girl. Good girl, yes. Oh, Echo's licking the camera. So let's talk about where the journey is going to go from here and what you guys can expect from here with Copper. And this is where we also need to give a disclaimer. So a couple of people asked me, how do you know Copper will work? And the simple answer is that I don't. Each time you take on a puppy, it's a risk, it's a gamble. There's a good chance that puppy won't have the right instincts, won't this, won't that. There's a lot of different things that can mean she'd turn out not being a working dog, in which case she will just become a family pet. But yeah, we hope she does become a working dog, having said that. Yeah, so you'll notice as we go on and as we make videos, and I've been making a lot of Copper videos right now. We're riding that wave of excitement and content where people are enjoying the content about the puppy. That will slow down. We will have a lot of our normal content coming back in, but we are going to follow Copper's training journey all the way through. And really, we're talking about following that on for 2 years, providing that it works out and she progresses the way we want her to, and that she's going to make a good sheepdog. So really, what does that look like? So obviously we've started with obedience training, things like that. And one thing you're going to notice as we're training Copper and as this journey goes on is it will come in waves. So there'll be a lot of stuff. We'll be training a lot of stuff. Kate. Oh, Echo, is she being mean to you? Anyway, as I was saying, it'll sort of come in waves. So we'll start one particular type of training. So right now we're doing obedience. So right now there'll be a lot of obedience for the next probably 3 weeks until Copper's vaccinated. And how that basically works is we'll start off with what you've seen, and we'll basically increase the difficulty, and then we'll start to train our obedience in different environments with different stimulus. So something a lot of people say to me, oh, is my dog listens fine at home, but when I'm out in this environment it doesn't listen? And that's because you need to train in every environment. You need to train your dog to listen in different levels of stimulus and different environments. So we'll start doing some obedience out here while the dogs are running about, while there's a lot of distraction, and then we'll move on to doing it around livestock on the farm, obedience on there, and make sure Copper is listening to me at home, in the garden, out in the field, and we'll train that in each stage or area. Then we'll move on from that, and it'll sort of get to the where we'll be taking Copper out in the farm more and more, and we'll be taking her out with other dogs, and there'll be no real training at this point. It's more about, we'll still be reconditioning some of that obedience, but it's more about letting Copper, for me anyway, naturally bring out her instincts, so she can shadow other dogs, go with other dogs, chase sheep, things like that, without really too much training or instruction, to let her naturally, or her instincts naturally come out and naturally develop. And at that stage I'll really only be watching, looking, watching those instincts develop and sort of formulating a plan for later on. The only time that I might jump in or do something, if I see something which I really don't like is going to become a really bad habit, or something that's going to be really hard to train out of later, I may try and stop those things before they become a problem for training later on. So just to say, there's lots of different ways of training a sheepdog, and some people will push those instincts on very quickly with the things like round pens and different training aids. For me, I tend to go a much more natural way, which tends to be a little bit slower. So that period of letting Copper's natural instincts come out without too much training will be a sort of longer process for me than it would other sheepdog trainers through other methods. But I think I tend to get better results doing it in a more natural way. In the next step on from here is going to be starting to introduce training and some commands and things like that. So we'll probably start off ideally with the obedience training. The lie down should be there integrated with the obedience training, and we won't have to work too much on that. It doesn't always work like that, because when a dog gets into that herding mode and it gets super excited, it'll sometimes regress on that a little bit, and we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, generally we start with trying to add in directional commands, then steady and any other commands we're going to do. But yeah, that's another process which is quite long. We'll generally look at adding in one command at a time, and then eventually try to move it on to where we can do a cohesive herding situation where we're using lots of commands to control sheep. So we'll see that as well, and that'll be later on. All depends on the dog. Storm was doing that sort of stuff at 8 months. Echo was a year, 14 months old before we got into that type of stuff. So I really can't make guarantees on whether we'll actually get there, but I'm hopeful that we will, and I think we will. And making guarantees on time is really up to how Copper reacts to training. So guys, that's just basically covered Copper's training journey, and I'm going to show you this right now. Do you see all these things in Copper's fur? These are sticky willies, so she's been rolling around in the sticky willies with Echo. But yeah, a couple of things just to say that we've noticed about Copper's personality. One, she seems to be very trainable and quite a quick learner, especially when it comes to her obedience training and things like that. So yeah, and that'll do. To counter that, she's also seems to be extremely strong-willed. Yes, so she seems to be extremely strong-willed, and when she doesn't want to do something, she does make a bit of trouble. And she also, surprisingly for a border collie pup, is quite clingy. She seems to be very attached and doesn't like to be separated from me and Stacey. She seems to really like Cole, even though she can get a bit chewy, and Cole can get a bit pully, so but they're doing pretty well together. And I'm going to be doing a episode on the dogs and the child, and basically my opinions on dogs around children. But Copper's been around them quite a bit and they're getting on okay. But yeah, she does seem to be a bit sort of clingy and doesn't like to be too separated. So she will have to work on that because you're going to be living outside when you're older. But yeah, quite strong-willed dog. She really, if she wants something, she really tries hard to get it. If she doesn't want to do something, she can be a bit of a nightmare. Toilet training's not going too well right now, but oh well. Go on. Oh no, you're not going over there actually. There's cool stuff's over there. You said. But yeah, she's got a really good personality. Especially with other dogs, she's really integrated well with them, except for Storm. Storm's a bit grumpy anyway, but Storm will come around eventually. Not that you can see they can be out together and things, but Storm just is a bit extra grumpy with her. But yeah, she's doing pretty well. She's starting to fit into the pack pretty well. She is causing me and Stacey a headache, but that's what puppies do. But generally she's actually getting on fine. She seems to have a good personality, and I know I had that disclaimer earlier, I do think she will be a reasonably decent sheepdog one day. She's definitely got a lot of the characteristics you would look for, so that sort of confidence, willingness to learn, especially with obedience. We talk about the will to work with border collies, and even for a border collie, I would say she is so smart when it comes to being trainable, because I'd say she moved on much quicker with the obedience training than Storm and Echo did, with much less effort and frustration on my part. But patience is the name of the game with that. But definitely she seemed to progress from the sit to the lie down extremely quickly, and we've even moved on since then, and you'll get to see some videos in the future of how we move on from there. But yeah, she's done reasonably well, and I think that'll do for this video. What do you think, Copper? And we'll see you guys in the next one.